Welcome back to ABA Chapter Chat.
Great to be back.
Today, we're really getting into something fundamental, aren't we? It's that question we all grapple with. How do we make sure the skills we teach actually stick and show up where they're needed?
Absolutely. We're talking about generalization, making sure learning translates to the real world across different situations, different people, and, lasts over time.
It's the difference between a skill being learned in a session and being truly functional. We pour so much effort into teaching.
We do. And the payoff is seeing that skill become part of someone's everyday life, beyond just our direct instruction.
Exactly. And we've all been there, right? A student is doing fantastic with you, but then with another teacher or maybe at home, and it's just not happening.
Or they master one specific task, but a slightly different version throws them off completely.
Yeah, like knowing sight words but not decoding new ones. It's a common challenge.
It really is. And that's precisely why we're diving into Chapter 11 from Applied Behavior Analysis for Teachers Today, providing for generalization of behavior change.
Right, it gives us that roadmap.
It does. It helps us understand what generalization is and, crucially, how we can actually plan for it, how we can program for it.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. Unpack generalization in ABA. Define it clearly, use examples we can all relate to, and pull out practical strategies to help tackle those generalization hurdles.
Sounds good. Let's start with the basics.
So when ABA folks talk about generalization, what exactly are we zeroing in on?
Well, the foundational definition, going back to Bear-Wolf and Risley in '68, basically says a behavior change shows generality if it's durable. It lasts.
Okay, so it sticks around over time.
Right. Or it appears in different environments, different settings with different people.
So it travels.
Exactly. Or it spreads to related behaviors that maybe we didn't even directly teach.
Okay. So durability, appearing across settings, and spreading to similar skills, it's not just a one-shot deal in one specific context.
Precisely. It's about breadth and depth of learning.
The chapter gives some useful non-examples, too, which I think really clarifies things. Can we touch on those? Like when it doesn't happen?
Sure. A classic one is the Foxwood example.
Yeah.
Students behaving well in a structured residential center, but then regressing after they leave. The skills didn't generalize to their home environment.
Right. The structure wasn't there anymore.
Or think about Miss Kitchen's students' great performance when she's right there, but not so much with the general ed teacher alone. That's a failure to generalize across instructors.
We see that a lot.
And Mr. Fonseca's first graders, they learned specific sight words, but couldn't apply that knowledge to decode totally new words. The skill didn't generalize to untrained, similar stimuli.
Those examples definitely resonate. Okay, so the chapter then breaks generalization down into three main types. Let's get into those. Stimulus generalization first.
Okay, stimulus generalization. This is when a response we've trained occurs when different, but somehow similar stimuli are present. Different settings, different people, different materials. But they share key features with the training situation.
So like teaching a child red using a red block, and then they correctly label a red car, a red apple, maybe even a red shirt.
Exactly. They've generalized the concept of red across different items, or understanding different ways a barista might ask for your coffee order, even if the phrasing isn't exactly what you practiced.
It's about responding to the relevant features of the stimulus, not just the identical stimulus used in training.
That's the core idea.
And the next type is maintenance.
Maintenance, yeah. This is all about durability. Does the learned behavior persist over time, even after we faded out or completely stopped the specific reinforcement program we used to teach it?
So does it stick around long after the intervention is over?
Pretty much. It's crucial for long-term success.
Yeah.
We don't want skills vanishing the moment we step back.
And the chapter links this back to extinction, right? If reinforcement just stops cold turkey, the behavior might extinguish.
Exactly. Maintenance planning is about preventing that fade out, often by ensuring the natural environment can take over and support the behavior.
Makes sense. Okay, and the third type, response generalization. This one feels a bit different.
It is a bit different. Response generalization refers to changes happening in untrained behaviors that are similar in some way to the behavior we actually targeted and changed.
So you work on one thing, and related things also improve without direct teaching.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
These related behaviors are often part of the same response class. They achieve the same outcome or function. The book uses an example like reinforcing neat handwriting for multiplication problems. And then maybe you see improvement in handwriting for division problems too, even though you didn't specifically reinforce that. Or teaching one way to ask for help and the person starts using slightly different appropriate phrasings too.
Okay, I get the concept,
Yep.
but the chapter cautions that this isn't something we should just assume will happen,
Oh,
right?
definitely not. It's less predictable than stimulus generalization or maintenance.
Yeah,
It's great when it happens, but we often need to directly teach those related skills too. We can't just bank on it.
got it. So 3 types: stimulus generalization, maintenance, and response generalization. Understanding those helps us see the different facets of making learning stick.
Right.
Now, the big question: how do we make it happen? The chapter emphasizes programming for generalization. It's not passive.
Not at all.
Oh.
That famous line from Baer and colleagues, generalization should be programmed rather than expected or lamented. We have to build it into our plans from the start.
So no just crossing our fingers.
No finger crossing. We need active strategies. The chapter lays out 7 key approaches.
7. Okay, let's walk through them. First up is train and hope. Sounds less than ideal.
Yeah, it's basically what it sounds like. You teach a skill in one specific way, in one setting, maybe with one person, and then you just hope for the best, hope it shows up elsewhere.
And does it work?
Rarely reliably, especially for learners who need more support. Stokes and Baer pointed out it's generally ineffective.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get lucky, like a kid spontaneously reading signs after learning in class, but you absolutely cannot count on it. It's not a strategy.
Okay, so train and hope is mostly what not to do. What's the second approach?
Sequentially modify. This is much more systematic. If you have an intervention that works in setting A, you then deliberately implement the same or a similar intervention in setting B, then setting C, and so on.
So you replicate the successful teaching conditions across all the places you want the behavior to happen. Like Connie's rating slips moving from the resource room to the general ed class.
Exactly. You're actively modifying each relevant environment in sequence. The book notes it's maybe not pure generalization since you're intervening everywhere, but it's a very practical way to get the behavior occurring broadly.
It achieves the outcome. Okay, strategy 3.
Introduce to natural maintaining contingencies. This one's really key. It's about choosing target behaviors that will naturally be reinforced in the person's everyday life, and then making sure that connection happens.
So tapping into what the real world already rewards.
Precisely. Think about the relevance of behavior rule. Teach skills that will pay off for the learner. This often involves identifying what's reinforcing in their environment, social interaction, getting needs met, accessing information.
Like teaching someone to ask for things they want because getting what you want is naturally reinforcing. Or teaching reading because it unlocks books and information.
Right, and sometimes it involves teaching the person how to elicit that reinforcement, like prompting praise by asking, "How am I doing?" It's about ensuring the skill contacts the natural reward system. The goal is for the environment itself to trap the behavior.
Makes sense. You want the behavior to sustain itself. Okay, number 4.
Train sufficient exemplars, also known as general case programming. This means teaching with enough variety in your examples.
Variety in what way?
Variety in the stimuli, the settings, the instructors. Basically, exposing the learner to a wide range of relevant examples of the concept or skill.
Like our earlier red example showing different shades, different objects, pictures, real items.
Exactly. Or teaching someone to use a debit card by practicing with different types of card readers, different store layouts, maybe even different amounts. You analyze the range of situations they'll encounter the general case and teach across that range.
You teach the sameness and the acceptable differences.
That's a great way to put it. It builds a more flexible, general understanding.
Okay, on to number 5. Train loosely. What does that mean?
It means intentionally varying the non-critical aspects of your teaching. Instead of super rigid, identical teaching trials every time, you mix things up a bit.
How so?
Maybe you change your tone of voice, the exact wording of the instruction, the location within the room, the time of day, the materials used, as long as the core components needed for learning are there.
So making the teaching a bit less clinical and a bit more like the variable real world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The real world isn't perfectly standardized. Training loosely helps the learner focus on the essential parts of the task or skill, rather than getting stuck on irrelevant details of the teaching setup. Think incidental teaching or naturalistic approaches.
Right, teaching in the moment using naturally occurring situations. That makes sense for promoting generalization. Okay, number 6.
Use indiscriminable contingencies. This relates to reinforcement schedules, making it harder for the learner to tell exactly when reinforcement is coming.
So moving away from reinforcing every single time.
Right. Using intermittent schedules of reinforcement where reinforcement happens sometimes, but not always, makes the behavior much more resistant to extinction. It helps with maintenance.
Like gradually thinning the schedule?
Yes, thinning the schedule is one way. Also, delaying reinforcement sometimes or using unpredictable group contingencies like a mystery motivator. The unpredictability keeps the behavior stronger when reinforcement isn't constant, which is often the case in natural settings.
So less predictable reinforcement helps the behavior persist. Got it. And the final one, number 7.
Program common stimuli. This is about increasing the similarity between the teaching environment and the environment where you want the skill to be used, the generalization setting.
Making the training look and feel more like the real deal.
Exactly. Or bringing elements of the real deal into the training. You could use similar materials, have similar people present, use similar instructions, or even conduct training in the natural setting sometimes.
Like setting up a mock store in the classroom to practice shopping skills, or using the actual playground equipment during social skills training.
Yes, those are great examples. You can also use contrived common stimuli, like a specific visual cue, a self-instruction content, or even just a reminder phrase that the learner can take from the training setting into the generalization setting to prompt the skill.
So bridging the gap between teaching and real life by making them share common elements.
That's the goal.
Wow, okay. That's a powerful set of 7 strategies. Train and hope, mostly don't. Sequentially modify, introduce to natural contingencies, train sufficient exemplars, train loosely, use indiscriminable contingencies, and program common stimuli.
That's the toolkit.
It's clear that programming for generalization takes real effort and planning. It's not an afterthought. What are some of the big hurdles professionals face when trying to implement these?
Well, time is always a factor, isn't it? It takes time to analyze the natural environment, plan for sufficient exemplars, train loosely, coordinate with others for sequential modification.
True, and the sheer variability of the real world. You can't program for every possible situation.
Exactly. And sometimes the natural environment just isn't that supportive of the new skill, which makes maintenance really tough. You might need to work on changing the environment or teaching self-management.
Right, which leads into another strategy, sometimes mentioned mediating generalization or training to generalize, like teaching self-monitoring.
Yes. Teaching self-management skills, teaching people to recruit reinforcement, or even reinforcing generalization itself as a behavior. These are powerful additions.
Okay, so summing up this deep dive, what are the crucial takeaways for listeners trying to improve generalization in their practice?
I'd say first, always think about those 3 types: stimulus, maintenance, response when you're planning. Are you addressing all dimensions?
Good point. Don't just focus on one.
Second, be intentional. Actively program for generalization using these strategies. Don't just hope.
Right. Make it part of the plan.
Third, really analyze the natural environment. What skills will be naturally supported? How can you connect the learned behavior to existing reinforcers?
Leverage what's already there.
Yeah. And use lots of examples, different settings, instructors. Train loosely. Make reinforcement less predictable over time. Make training similar to the real world. And teach self-management.
That's a great checklist. It really emphasizes that generalization isn't magic. It's the result of careful, systematic planning and teaching.
Absolutely. It's ongoing work, but it's arguably the most important aspect of making our interventions truly meaningful.
So thinking about that train and hope approach we started with, here's a final thought for you listeners, building on that. Considering the train and hope approach, what is one small change you could make in your practice today to shift from hoping for generalization to actively programming for it?
A really practical question to mull over.
Indeed. Thank you so much for breaking down these crucial concepts with us today. This has been incredibly insightful.
My pleasure. It's a vital topic.
We hope this deep dive helps you all enhance the effectiveness and durability of the skills you teach. Thanks for joining us on ABA Chapter Chat.